Namaste, my friends. Today I'm going to talk about, the path, life, how it works, and what's so hard. You know, being a human being means that we get to live an intentional life. We get to live a life and experience the things that we want to experience. That is the beauty of being human. And a lot of times there is discord between this and the actual life that we live. There's so many things that I find that I want to do with my life, whether it's working more towards realizing my goals, such as, working out for my body, doing meditation for my mind. Just so many things that I want to do my career wise. I really want to, give the value that I see myself having and being paid for it. And all this takes a lot of hard work. I want to live this way, but it's a lot of hard work to do, and it's really hard to do it. Um, you know, and one of the reasons that this is in the simple design of how the mind works. The mind is the thing that we do things with, where our intention is, where our ability to direct our body is, and our body is a beautiful thing too. But it's more our minds where the hiccups happen because the body does what it does, but it's the mind that is very confusing, that you have to, deal with. Literally, the body, the only time it'll fail you is like when it's done. I don't know, like you don't have legs, yeah, you can't get up. But if you do have legs, you can always get up and move around. But sometimes I lay in bed and getting up is literally the hardest thing, and I just don't want to do it, and I push it off for a couple few hours. If that is not the body, as soon as I say get up and command it, it would get up. But it's like the mind that keeps that, makes you think that it's so hard, but it's really not. So the mind's where the trickery is. And this is not to say shit about the mind. The mind is amazing, but something that I'm beginning to realize is how the mind works and why it's hard to do the things that we want to do and live the way that we want to live. Um, and essentially, it comes down to how the mind works, right? So, and I'm gonna compare the mind to the self. The self is me, is I want to do this. I want to be like this. I want to be happy. I want to be accomplished. I want to be successful. Like the person experiencing, right? And then the mind is the tool of experience, is what allows us to experience. So the differences between how they work, right? The self is in the present moment. It's very much here, and it's like in tune with just what is, and it's kind of fresh. And every morning you wake up, there's hope or despair, whatever it is, but it's sort of new. But the mind is old. The mind has memory. The mind is a amalgamation of all your previous selves existing. So that means that the mind is influenced by every experience that you have had before, the quality of those experiences, how you judge those experiences to be, whether they were good or bad, whether you wanted those experiences to happen again or not happen again, how you reacted emotionally, mentally, and overall, whether it was something that is acceptable to you or not acceptable to you. And so it's accumulated every experience you've had and all those reactions you've had with it. It's accumulated as a memory and it's carrying it now, right? So it carries the past so well, like a part of your identity is being held there, where you're like, okay, this is the kind of person I am as I've lived through life. I don't like this and I don't like that. This is good, this is bad. You have your preferences, you have the things you don't want. And so all of that is contained in memory as the mind, and the way that you go about life is contained within that. Um, and then the self is more in the present moment. So, like the self, the mind is always collecting the self's way of existing and solidifying and placing so much importance on the way that you are so that it's easy for you to be the way that you are in the future, you know? So it gets a little bit complicated, but essentially, the way that you have reacted to previous hard things is the way that your mind is gonna like convey reality to you. So for me, for example, um, and I think most people, is I don't like to do hard things. I don't like I like doing easy things with immediate gratification that make me feel good right away. That's what I like to do. But hard work and doing things that don't feel good in the moment, I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with it. It's like I want a certain kind of way of being. And this is just consistently like how I've been made up. And what happens that now, the mind has collected that all the times that I haven't done hard things and I've ignored them and I'm like, I don't feel like doing it and I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And I go back to just doing the habit of just doing what's easy and what's immediately gratifying. It's collected all of that in all times that I've done it. And now here, the more that, now that I'm becoming an adult and I actually want to like do things that are fulfilling and that I know are good for me, all of that is fighting against me so that when in the moment myself is like, hey, we should work out because working out is good for us and we need to be healthier, then all that like thing from the past, the memory comes, the mind comes, and it's like, hey, it's much easier. Like, you don't want to do this, you never wanted to do this, so let's ignore this. And then you just ignore it, and it just becomes this habit of not doing the things that are worth doing because they're hard and uncomfortable. So that's like the differences between the mind and the self, is that the self is more in the present moment and it's more in tune with like what you want and what you want to be, and the mind is more in the past and like accumulating every experience and giving you like the fastest way to be what you are. It's sort of like cache or memory, when you're like on an app and Facebook or something will save the things that you have done in the past so that like you can just quickly get to it much faster and it's more optimal. So that's basically what the brain is doing. With what the mind is doing is that it's making the routes that you take, the decisions that you make consistently, it's making those much easier to access. And that's just for the sake of efficiency. But this is really bothersome when you want to change and you want to like be better and you want to like have better habits and be a different person. And so this is the difference between the life that we want to live and then the reality that we are living in. It's all because of our relationship with the mind. And previously, this relationship has been done unconsciously without much awareness and just sort of automatically being done. But the beauty of being an adult and really coming to realize your power is that you can live consciously and intentionally. And what a beautiful thing to have yoga and meditation and all this spiritual practices which allow you to come into the reality of living an intentional and conscious life. And so the question is like, okay, how does yoga and meditation help you, you know, come out of that habit pattern, come out of that memory and live the life that you want to live and not the life that's like been forced upon you by your unconscious ways of living. And the thing is, the way that meditations and all this works is that they get you out of your mind story. That's first of all, you find a way to get out of the mind, get out of the story, get out of the memory. And you do that, let's say, with the breath. You're focusing on the breath. Every moment that you're purely focusing on the breath is a moment where you are putting into your mind's memory the experience of being fully present, being fully aware. And it's consuming this experience. For the sake of efficiency, again, it's going to keep building. Okay, this is where we're going. And when you keep getting distracted and you keep coming back, again, you're building another thing where you're like, coming back, building the strength of coming back and being intentionally with the breath and being fully with the breath. And so you're like engineering and programming yourself to come back and be in the present moment just as you are. And what that does, right, as well as creating that the memory of being in the present moment, is it gives you a break from your mind. It lets you go out. And the thing with the mind is the way that it works, like it's not that the mind is bad, it's that it works too well. That it like and that's the bad side. I mean, it's funny to say that the bad thing about the mind is that it works too well, but it just works too well, and that's why it keeps you in the story, because the story is literally like the most optimized version of yourself, And the things that you have been doing and the way that you have been living is the most, it's optimized for that to be the easiest thing for you. You know, for the way that you are, your personality, your character, your identity, all that has been made so that it's the easiest thing for you to be. And so when you begin to try and change that, to try and transform what you are, to really become the person that you want to be rather than the person that you are, that's when you have to develop spiritual practices, and you have to retrain, not even retrain your mind, because the mind is like optimal. It's an optimizing machine. It's a thing that is freaking doing an amazing job. It's that you have to change yourself, right? You have to change yourself and the way that you live in the present moment in order for the mind to catch up. And the mind is always like lagging because it's collecting memory and information from such a long time period. And so when you start developing conscious practices and to live intentionally and to be with your being intentionally, you're really changing yourself. And that's the powerful thing. At first you might not notice your mind changing, because the mind, again, it takes a while for it to catch up and to like enter this new paradigm. And of course, every time you stop meditating and you only do it a little bit and a little bit of this and that, you'll just go back to your old habit patterns. The experiences that you're having in the present moment, they're still being accumulated in the mind. So the more consciously you can live, the more intentionally you can live, the quicker the mind will transform, or will re-optimize your identity, yourself, and the way that you relate to the world. And then the slower you do it, the slower it's going to do it, just because it's the nature of it to collect every moment's experience, every moment's sense of self, and the way you behave, and amalgamate it into this huge thing of identity. So it's a lot of hard work to transform your relationship with your mind, to transform the contents of the mind, to transform the program that the mind, to transform your identity, your characteristics, your all the things that make you who you are, to transform them. It's a whole lot of work, but it is so worth it. This is a life that is worth living, and it's a life that's worth for you living exactly the way that you want to live it, precisely the way that you want to live it. There is no other way to live. I mean, there is other ways to live, but you just, if you want the best from yourself, of course, you can't change the world. The world outside, many things will happen. People will leave you, relationships come and go. But the relationship between yourself should be, if you want that to be the best, which you absolutely can, it can be amazingly perfect. It can be the most optimized. Just knowing the self and knowing how to be with the self, because you do have absolute control over yourself. You can do whatever you want. And in order to have that come to you, it's a lot of hard work to come out of yourself and to be what you need to be. But it's very much worth it. So that's just a little bit of how the mind works, and how the self can, works as well, and how we can take advantage of the way that the mind works in order to live the life that we want to live. That's the beauty of being human, is living intentionally, living according to our will, according to the way that we want things to go. And ultimately, we are the only ones we have control over. And if we go the way that we want to go, the whole world is going the way we want to go. If we feel good inside, if we feel like life is happening on our terms, it's amazing. And that, to get to that point, is a lot of hard work, but it is very much worth it. And here I am, just telling my journey of how I'm going on this path and really trying to live this truth. And I hope some of it can help you too. All right, namaste.